mystery. But also, the Egyptian traditions tell us that what is concealed there touches on the fundamental mystery, the mystery of the immortality of the human soul, and of how we should live our lives in order to prepare for the journey that we will make after death. And
that information could change the entire world.
I believe that information could change the entire world, and I believe it was intended to change the entire world, and that it was always conceived of as that a time would come when it would do that. Look, we're looking here at a very careful attempt to hide away time capsules, and I repeat, this is in plural, 2 places, not just one place at Giza. And for me, this is part of the significance that we don't only have a chamber underneath the Great Sphinx, but we also have a chamber inside the Great Pyramid, the doorway to which was discovered by a robot camera in 1993. I mentioned this on your last show, but just to fill in those who weren't with us then, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, which weighs 6 million tons, has within its massive superstructure 4 very unusual features which are not found in any other pyramid. And these are narrow shafts which angle up steeply through the monument from inside 2 of the known chambers of the monument. And 2 of these shafts, they're just 8 inches wide and 8 inches high. You could roughly fit a small dog into the mouth of one of these shafts. 2 of these shafts go all the way through the body of the pyramid and exit on the outside and actually point at particularly significant stars. And the other 2 shafts from the lower chamber do not exit on the outside of the monument, and it was these, both the northern and the southern shaft, that were explored by the German engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink in 1993 with a very high-tech robot camera. And in the northern shaft, after a journey of approximately 80 feet, the robot came to a bend in the shaft. There were some metal objects observed on the floor which the camera could not capture in high definition. But they felt that they did not want to negotiate it around the bend unless it became stuck in the shaft. So they pulled it down. They then explored the southern shaft, and they reached the end of the southern shaft after a journey of 200 feet. And what was at the end of that shaft was a door, a portcullis door, complete with 2 metal handles. And this was the point at which Rudolf Gantenbrink's project inside the Great Pyramid was cancelled forthwith by the Egyptian authorities, and has never since been resumed, although in a rather parallel case to what is happening at the Sphinx, and again involving this same Egyptian official, Zahi Hawass. An announcement has been made that a Canadian team will be involved in opening that door later this year, and again there are signs of some sort of ghastly commercial enterprise surrounding this project as well. Now, if you were the survivors, let's just look at this theoretically. If you were the survivors of a lost civilization, of a civilization that was destroyed in the enormous cataclysm that brought the last ice age to an end, and a great civilization, I believe, and one with a high spiritual knowledge and purpose, if you had survived, if you were amongst the few survivors, and you had precious knowledge that you wished to pass down to the future, and if you and you would be far-sighted enough to know that mankind would revert to barbarism, and that there would be a time of terrible darkness, perhaps for thousands of years, before humanity again reached a level where it could use this information, you would hide it away very, very, very carefully, but you would provide clues that would enable people eventually to find it. And I think that that's what we're looking at on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. We're looking at the clues that lead to specific locations. That shaft which led to that doorway was always a clue. The opening of that shaft was sealed until 1872. The last 5 inches of stone over the mouth of that shaft had been left deliberately in place, and if you walked into that to the lower chamber in the Great Pyramid before 1872, you would just have seen blank walls. But a very enterprising engineer went around those walls one day, tapping with a hammer, and found 2 hollow-sounding points, and he chopped those through with a chisel, and lo and behold, there were the mouths of these 2 shafts ascending up at steep angles into the body of the pyramid. And it's in these shafts, as I say, that these discoveries were made in 1993, and I think the builders of that monument always intended them to be found, but did not intend them to be found by barbarians who would not know what to do with the knowledge hidden there.
Well, I'm not sure what that says about our present state of social affairs, but Graham, you mentioned hints. Are there any hints about when these things should be found? I mean, is there any text, anything that tells us the timeline when these things should be found?
There is a curious suggestion of this, which is locked deeply into the entire ancient Egyptian system of knowledge, and this is connected to the changing patterns of the stars and the great cycle of the constellation of Orion, which, like all the stars in the sky, changes its positions over a 26,000-year cycle. And the effect of this change in position is to cause its altitude above the horizon to continuously rise for 13,000 years, then to fall for 13,000 years, then to rise again for 13,000 years. And if we go back to the beginning of that cycle, we find ourselves in the period when these monuments, when this incredible site was originally conceived, which I'm absolutely adamantly certain is the epoch of 10,500 BC, and it is now a simple astronomical fact that we're at the end of the current cycle. We're at the highest altitude, whereas at that time the stars were at the lowest altitude. We were then at the first time of Orion, Osiris, and we are now at the last time, what would be in astronomical terms literally the last of days. And there is a strong indication in that material that this is the time we live in now. Of course, you're speaking in terms of vast expanses of thousands of years, and you would have to say, give or take 100 or 200 years, but it is our time. This appears to be the time that this was intended to happen. And when I look around the world and see the state and the mess that we are in, it frankly seems to me that this is indeed the time when we desperately need a vision from the past, something that will shake us up and help us to understand that we absolutely must find a new direction in life as a species if we are not to completely blow it, completely waste and destroy the opportunity we've been given. And that's why I'm so concerned about the projects that are taking place at Giza. I'm concerned with the secrecy surrounding these projects, and I'm concerned that objects could actually be removed from those chambers, and it could be taken away without the rest of us knowing anything about it whatsoever.
No, I don't know a lot about pyramids, but I remember all the old movies, Graham, about the pyramids and sand shifting and walls and rocks coming down. Is it not possible that if they go blundering in the wrong way, Graham, there could be destruction?
Yes, it's highly possible. I would say it's highly possible. I would say that the ancient geniuses who created these structures had a profound knowledge of human nature and knew that greed and ego and the lust for power would come into play when these chambers were being discovered. And it is most probable indeed that they will have taken safeguards to protect against that, which still doesn't mean that the rest of us should be complacent about it. Perhaps the safeguard that they created was a psychological one. Perhaps the safeguard is us. Perhaps it's up to us, perhaps it's up to the world community to assert definitely that these monuments are a legacy of the whole of mankind, and that the research and the projects that are taking place at them cannot be monopolized in secret by a few wealthy and powerful individuals. Perhaps that's the safeguard. Perhaps it's awakening human knowledge which will protect these chambers ultimately.
All right. One quick question, then we've got to go to the phones. Here it is. My question to Mr. Hancock, this is my facts. If the pyramids were not built, as the scholars say it was, by thousands of unwilling workers and made long sand ramps, then tell me, Mr. Hancock, how was it built? Please be specific, if you are so sure, how it was not built.
Well, first of all, we can be sure that it wasn't built with long sand ramps. But there's simple engineering reasons for this. A team of human labor hauling a 2.5-ton block, and 2.5 tons is the minimum weight of a block in the Great Pyramid, cannot haul that block up an incline steeper than 1 in 10. Any steeper incline than 1 in 10 is impossible. Very detailed engineering studies have been done on this, and Robert Boval, who is, by the way, a construction engineer, my co-author on the Message of the Sphinx, Robert Boval and I report this information in the Message of the Sphinx in considerable detail. Now, a 1 in 10 ramp to reach the top of the Great Pyramid would have to be a mile long. If it were made of sand, or mud or earth of any kind, it would collapse entirely under its own weight. The blocks being hauled up that ramp would cause the ramp itself to collapse. This is simple physics. The ramp would not support the weight of the blocks.